Hello everyone, it's your host CyberBored and welcome back to the home project where today we're going to continue by setting up our domain center. We're going to start by installing the guest ISO edition for our Windows Server 2022. We just need to go to device, insert the guest edition, then we're going to enter the guest edition and do the installation. And the reason why you would want to install it's obviously to automatically adjust the resolution of the screen. It also is going to give you a smoother experience with the mouse. It's going to give you some other cool features. Now after the installation is done, all we need to do is reboot the system and we are going to be good to go. Now that the installation is done, we need to configure and set up few things as a start for our domain controller. First, we need to go to the control panel, network and internet, network sharing center, change adapter settings, and we have two network adapters. As you remember from the previous video, we have set up two adapters, one that works on the NAT protocol and the other one hosts the internal network. And we need to figure out which is which. To figure out each network adapter, all you need to do is just either look on the network connection details or look at the IPv4 connectivity status. The one that is not connected to anything, as you could see over here, is the internal network, and the one that has internet connection, it is the NAT. And you could also look at the IP addresses. This is the internal network and this is the NAT protocol. Now that we have figured each network adapter, all we need to do is rename them. I'm going to call the NAT one just external. You could call it whatever you want, and the internal network internal, just to keep it simple and easy to understand. Now on the next step, we need to set up the IP address for our internal network gateway. All we need to do is just go to properties, internet protocol version 4, properties again, use the following IP address, and we are going to give it 192.168.0.1. And since this is going to be the default gateway, we're not going to add a default gateway. We're just going to leave it empty. And for the preferred DNS server, you could either put 192.168.0.1 or you could do the loopback address, which is 127.0.0.1, and then we're going to press OK, and this should be set up. After setting up the IP address for our network adapter, we're going to set up the roles for our domain center or Active Directory. All we need to do is to go to the server manager, which should be opened by default when you open the Windows or launch the Windows Server 2022. Press Add Roles and Features, Next, and choose whatever server you have. Since we only have one server, we're going to keep it as default. And you need to check Active Directory Domain Services. Now, the reason we need this feature, as we discussed before, we are going to host a domain center or domain service that is going to store all the information about our users, our objects, our network, to be able to set up a private internal connection and connect all of our users and enforce all the rules upon them. So we need to check this feature, then press next and next, and finally we need to just install it and wait for the installation to be done. So the installation is done. All we need to do is press close, press on the warning flag over here which says that we have installed it but we haven't configured the active domain or domain services yet. So to configure it, all we need to do is press promote this service or server to a domain controller, and we are going to add a new forest and name it. Now, to recall what a forest is simply a collection of trees, and trees is simply a collection of objects. Now, to keep it simple, we're just going to simply name our domain dc.active.directory as an example. Then we're going to press next, and then add a password for your directory services restore mode. Then press next, then press again next. In the meantime, I forgot to do not very crucial step, but it isn't really important, but just to make everything easier for us, we need to change the name of our system. And all you need to do is go setting, system, then about, rename this PC, and we're just going to name it DC as domain center or domain controller. Now I made a mistake. You are apparently not supposed to change the name of the machine while configuring the Active Directory service. So once you change the name, you have to restart. So we're going to again redo the process of configuration of the domain services. So as before, we're just going to name it DC Active Directory. You could name it whatever domain you want it. It just depends on the company. So for us, we're just going to keep it DC Active Directory. We're going to give it a password again. Next, next. And by this point, everything should be good to go. We just need to press next and install after we check the prerequisites. Next, next, next. And now that we have the prerequisites checks, all we need to do is press install, and the domain controller or service should be installing now. After the installation is done, we're going to set up a new user because we don't want to be using the administrator account that comes by default into Windows machine. We want to keep it safe and disabled. We're going to create a new account and give this new account or user administrative control or administrative privilege, and we're going to be working through this user. After the installation is done, the device is going to restart automatically and everything should be set up correctly. Installation is done, and now that the system is restarted, we're going to be welcomed with this screen with a new name of a user, which is DC0 administrator. Administrator is the default account that comes with Windows in general, like any Windows operating system, Windows Server, Windows 10, Windows 8, it should be provided by default an administrator account. A feature that I didn't mention before, we're going to be adding now, is called Active Directory Certificate Service, which is used to bind the private key to the identity of a user, which gives more security since it's going to encrypt all activities, which gives more security since it's going to require a certificate for each interaction with an application or a user. Now, to set up this as before, we're going to go to add roles and features next until we reach server roles. Then we are going to check the Active Directory certificate, and then next, 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 and we're going to install. After the installation is done, we're going to press close, and then we're going to configure the certificate service. We're going to press on the flag, configure Active Directory certificate service, and then we're going to press next and turn on certificate authority. Next, and then next, 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 next. And for the validity period, we're going to give it a long time, like 100 years maybe, just so that we don't get bothered by changing or extending the validity period. Then next, next, and configure. And now we're going to create a new user. As mentioned before, the new user we're going to use as an admin instead of the default administrator account, because leaving the default administrator account is pretty dangerous for our security. So all we need to do is either press Tools, Active Directory Users and Computer, or go to Start, Windows Administrator Tools, and Active Directory Users and Computers. Then we're going to extend this DC Active Directory Computer or Active Directory, press New. As before, we'll create organization unit, which we have already done. Then we're going to create a new user. We're going to name the user Chad McLean and A-Chad. A for administrator and Chad is for the initial name of the user. Then press next. We're going to set the password to never expire. We're going to set up the password. Now, in a real working environment, you never want to set up the password to never expire, but for our convenience, we're going to leave it like that. Then press next and finish. And now we have a new user, and we need to add the user now to the admins group, since by default the user is not added by default to admins group. So we're going to type domain admins and check names to make sure that the name is correct. Press OK, apply, and OK. And now that we have created a new user, we're going to switch users by going to Start, Sign Out, Input, Keyboard Insert, Alt Delete. We're going to choose other users. We're going to type the name of the user, which is Chad, type the password, and we're going to log in into the user Chad McLean, and we're going to continue our setup. And as you can see, we have now logged into the new user with domain with admin's privilege. Now we're going to add the remote access service to be able to connect our users to the domain service, and all we need to do is add roles and features, and we're going to add remote access, then press next, 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 and we're going to add direct access and VPN and routing, then next, 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 and install. The installation is done. We're going to press close. We're going to go to tools, and we're going to navigate to routing and remote access, and we're going to launch it. Then we're going to right click on our DC local or domain center local, and we need to configure and enable the routing. We're going to press next. We're going to choose NAT, which is network address translation. Next. Now in the case where, as you saw, we didn't get any network adapters, we're going to close it and we're going to press refresh. Then we're going to go to configure again, next, NAT, next, and now it works. And we're going to choose the external network adapter, which is connected to the internet, and we're going to choose next. And as you can see, the interface is connected to the external network, and we're going to press finish and wait for it to finish loading. And just like that, everything should be set up now. For the next step, we're going to set up our DHCP to automatically configure and give our users IP addresses. So again, we're going to go to add roles and features, and we're just going to navigate to server roles. We're going to give it DHCP server, and we're going to add feature, then press next, 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 and install, and wait for the installation to be done. After the installation is finished, we're going to press close. Again, tools, we're going to go to DHCP, and we're going to launch the DHCP manager. Then after it launches, we're going to configure the DHCP pool and router to be able to have IP addresses configured automatically to our users. To do so, we're going to press on our Active Directory, then we are going to choose the IP v4, then choose new scope, press next, and we're going to name our scope according to the private IP address for our users, which is going to be 192.168.0.100.200, which is basically more than enough for our needs. And the starting IP address is going to be 192.168.0.100, and the ending 192.168.0.200. Now the reason for that is, for me, I don't need this many users. Now in a real environment you might need more than that, but of course you're going to be required to reserve IP addresses for the gateway, broadcast, etc. Now we're going to press next. We are going to add the IP address, and we're going to press next because here we're not going to add any exclusions and delay, so we're going to keep it like that. Please, the duration, it's basically you're reserving this IP address for a specific users for a specific amount of time. We're just going to keep it as default, and then press yes. Then we're going to add the default gateway, which is going to be 192.168.0.1, which is going to be the IP address of our gateway, which is the router. We're going to add the DNS server, which is going to be the gateway. Then press next. We're going to skip this, and we're going to press next and finish, and the scope should be ready for us. Then we're going to press right click, and then we should press on our Active Directory and press authorize to activate the scope. Then we're going to press refresh, and now everything should be set up. Now for the next step, we're going to be adding the router. To add the router, we're going to go to the server options, configure options, turn on the router, and we're going to add the default gateway of the router, which is 192.168.0.1, and we're going to add it, then press apply, and the router should be good to go. Next, we should refresh the Active Directory, and now everything should be set up. We're going to go to tools, add users, and we're going to add a new organization unit for the users. So as before, we're going to press on the Active Directory, press new, create organization unit, and we're going to name it _users. We're going to right click on users, new, we're going to add a new user. Let's name the user Jake, I don't know, Jake Lane, and it's going to be U for user, Jake. And as before, we're going to set it up to never expire just for the convenience, and finish. And now everything should be set up for our domain. To test that everything is good and running, to try and search for anything to check and see if we are connected to the internet. For example, let's search for League of Legends. And yeah, the internet should be working. Now we're going to launch our Windows 10 and connect it to the Active Directory, and everything should be set up. Now that we have launched our Windows 10 device, the Active Directory, and we have launched the Windows 10 user or device, you can see if just it works. We are already connected to the domain service or domain center or Active Directory, and we're going to just double check that we are actually connected. We just go to the change adapter and we're going to check the status, and as you can see we are connected, and we're going to check for the IP address, and we are given the first IP address, so everything is working perfectly. The DHCP, the remote access service, and the NAT. We need to connect our user that we created into our Windows 10 user. So all we need to do is press start, go to the setting, go to system, scroll down until you reach about, then scroll down. You need to press rename this PC advanced. Now we're going to name our computer name, for example client 1 to rename. We're going to press OK, and we're going to choose the name of the user, which was u-jake. We're going to add the password, and we're going to press OK, and everything should be working. Welcome to, and yeah, once you get this display over here or window over here, everything should be working fine. You must restart. OK, close, and press restart now. And all we need to do is just wait for the system to restart or finish restarting, and just like that our Active Directory should be all good and set up. All that's left to do is set up the group object policies. We're going to also set up the firewall and the fsync to connect everything to each other. We're going to also, in the next episode, we're going to set up our attacking machine and our vulnerable machine. And now we're going to test if everything is good and running once it finishes loading. We're going to log into our user, which was u-jake. We're going to add the password, and yeah, as you can see we're logging into Jake Lane. We're going to test if the network is working and everything is working. If it is, then we're good to go. As you can see, we are getting into the tutorial or loading screen, whatever you want to call it. I'm not sure what it's called. We just need to wait a few minutes. And now that we have launched again into the Windows 10 user, we're going to be checking if everything is working. We're going to try and connect to the network. We're also going to try the CMD to check if the internet connection and IP address, everything is fine. Complete setup, continue without signing in, and we're going to again search for example League of Legends, and we have it as the first result. And yeah, everything is working on the internet side. Let's check if the IP address is correct. We're going to check that by typing ipconfig, and yeah, everything is working fine. The gateway, default gateway is 192.168.0.1, and the IP address of the user is 192.168.0.100. That's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.